Well, good day and welcome to you. It is Thursday, June the 9th. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you happen to be. My name is Gary Willing. Want to welcome you to Search for Signs and just point out, if you want to know more about this information, I do strongly recommend to investigate it for yourself to see if there's anything to this or not. You can do it however you want to do it, but I have provided websites and the links are in the description portion of these videos that you can get wonderful background information about what we talk about. And like I said, you can see if there's anything to this for yourself. Now, I do want to thank those people who took the time to comment in the last video. Username 0034, Thomas Lynch, and if you're listening, Xander the Great, I just noticed that you replied to one of my replies. So I missed that, so I do apologize. But anyway, thank you very much for replying as well. I do want to just comment on I want to address one comment that came my way, and then I want to read what I wanted to talk about. But username 0034 wrote, "A small example of the joy of sharing is the response of people in dire straits to the help of people they don't even know. It is magical and beautiful. Next time you see such a report in the news, notice how you feel just hearing the story." So thank you so much for that, username 0034. It's spot on and wonderful to hear coming from you. Now, I do want to just say a couple things. Not so much about what you said, but about the principle of sharing and how it relates to that. Two very distinct reactions that that you get when you talk about the principle of sharing with somebody in the United States. One is they say, I don't want a government, I don't believe in the principle of sharing. That's communism, perhaps. And they don't want the government agency forcibly going into their account and pulling money out of their account, perhaps, and giving it to somebody else that they don't even know. Well, that's never going to happen. So, but that's one thing that happens. You know, it's like they're looking at life totally as it relates to themselves, i.e. they're selfish. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, it won't happen. So if you don't want to give money to somebody else after Maitreya is out in the world, nobody's going to take your money. But perhaps it's something you might want to learn how to do, because as Maitreya says, when you share, you recognize God within your brother. And we'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, the other reaction is people say, well, we kind of do it already, don't we? I mean, there's agencies that give money and countries that give aid to other countries and so forth. So we're kind of doing it. So yeah, that's good, right? And there's nothing wrong with agencies giving money. Most of those agencies don't give a lot of the donation dollar to what they're talking about. They're basically just an organization or bureaucracy. So out of each dollar, they might only give 5 or 10 or 20% of that dollar to what they're actually out there doing, because they have salaries to pay for, they have buildings to pay for, and that kind of rent to pay for, that kind of stuff, advertisement. Nations, when they give of aid to other nations, isn't the principle of sharing. Most of it has kind of a nefarious reason as to why they're doing it. So a lot of times it's to economically take over that country. So that's not the principle of sharing. The principle of sharing doesn't really have so much to do with individuals even, although that's a part of it. That's like a later down the road. But what will only bring about peace, according to Maitreya, is that nations give of their excesses to other nations in order to help that other nation, and they give it freely to that other nation. Now, according to Maitreya, each nation has some excess to give, whether it's one or two things or a lot of things, like, let's say, like the United States or some of the bigger superpowers like Russia or China might have a lot of excesses that they can give to other nations to help them out. But a smaller, let's say, African nation like Ghana or Togo or whatever might not have nearly as much resources to give as, let's say, the United States. They're not as rich a country, but they still have something to give. But every single nation has something that it needs from another nation too. And each nation will give of its excesses to other nations to allow to use in what they need, and can take what they need for their country freely and that kind of thing. That's the principle of sharing in a nutshell. But that in and of itself is the only thing, according to Maitreya, that will bring about peace. So if the nations of the world never shared and just the individuals did it, that would not bring about peace. So, but it is a part of it, because if you follow this story as long as I have, and you read Share National Magazine over the year the way that I did, you'll read articles about or stories that people have had about meeting Maitreya. And I talk about my own experiences that I've had with Maitreya. And there was one time that I saw him on the street. He asked for money, and he asked for a quarter. He didn't ask for like $1,000 or, hey, I need $500 for something. He never asked for like that. It's just a little amount. And he does it not because he needs a quarter to make a phone call or something. He does it because he's trying to teach stingy people such as myself the need and the importance to share. And like he said, when you share, you recognize God within your brother. So that's why he's like, and he can appear however he wants to look. I need to say that too. I didn't mention that to those people who don't understand that. So when I saw Maitreya, he didn't look how Maitreya looks. He looked like a homeless person on the street, but he asked me for a quarter. There was another instance that was quite funny. This woman wrote an experience that she had with Maitreya some years ago. And she was starting to suspect that this person was Maitreya based on what they were saying, how she was sensing that it could have been him and that kind of thing. And then he asked for like a specific amount, like 37 cents or something like that. And she had the 37 cents in her pocket and gave it to him. She felt really good, just like that, felt really good. And then he goes, hey, can I have 37 cents? She goes, this time she's like, okay. She finds some more money. She gives it to him. And he goes, can I have 37 cents? And this time she's starting to get a little annoyed about it. That whole feeling of joy and about sharing was starting to kind of fade. But it was a lesson to learn, to teach her how to share, is what it really amounted to. But I can't remember how many times he asked for that same amount. But she was like, why is he asking me for the same amount? But she was getting quite annoyed. But anyway, sharing is the most important thing that we can all do. Sharing is the most important thing that the whole world can do. But when we as individuals see Maitreya on TV and start to respond to his energies, start to respond to his teachings and so forth, we'll start to see ourselves as one family, that we shouldn't be antagonists against each other, even in our own life. But nations have to learn to do that too. And the only way that nations can do that is to share. And that's why it's so important that we talk about it now, that we start to look at it, that we educate ourselves better about it, perhaps even go back and look historically about the time that we did do that with the Marshall Plan and how it brought about peace, but to bring it to people's attention in your own life, that this is something that we need to do. You don't have to believe what I talk about Maitreya being the weighted teacher for all religions to know the importance of bringing about peace on this planet. You don't have to believe what I believe about the masters or anything like that in order to know how important it is to end hunger. And the only way that hunger will be ended on this planet and bring about justice and those kind of things, ease the tensions amongst the nations, is for nations to share the excesses of what they have with the other nations. So, but I do thank you so much for that comment that you made. All right, now I want to read an article coming from Benjamin Creme's master entitled America Adrift. Now, I follow politics in the United States, and I have been for decades. And if you follow it as closely as me, there's an old adage that says, the past doesn't always repeat itself, but it certainly does rhyme. And when it comes to politics, especially in the United States, and I'm sure if you're living in a different country, it's the same kind of thing. It might not repeat itself, but it certainly does rhyme. So he's talking in this article about the Bush administration and what the mindset and the problem, and the major problem, the illusion that the Bush administration had that they were divinely inspired to do what they did, which now we're seeing was a huge mistake. He even says that people will eventually see this as a grievous mistake, right? But the Democrats don't have this issue like the Republicans do. Now, it's important to keep in mind when I talk about politics that I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican. I have issues with the Democratic platform and party, just as I have with the Republican platform and party. Some have some good ideas, both have some good ideas, but most of them are very corrupt and very self-centered and very divisive. And that's not the way to go forward. So I'm not promoting the Democratic Party by talking about this, but one of my major criticisms of, and it's just from what I've seen over the years, I don't need a master to tell me this, I can look at it for myself, but one of the major criticisms that I have with the right and the conservative party in the United States, massive illusion that they are divinely inspired, and how they've claimed Christianity and patriotism as they are the only ones with the keys to those things, when there's no truth to any of that stuff. So, I want to read what Benjamin Creme's master wrote entitled America Adrift, and he talks about it in this way. So you can relate it to what's going on, and they're not in power right now, at least in terms of the White House, but they are in power in their own way. But it's still going on today, this illusion that the Republicans are divinely inspired, the illusion that Donald Trump is somehow this divine representative and is here in a divine capacity to help humanity in the way that he's doing, although he's creating nothing but division, nothing but problems. But so are the Democrats, but it's different. And this is the reason why I want to talk about it. This article is entitled America Adrift. It is only a matter of time before the people of the United States realize that they have made a grievous mistake. They have reinstated, albeit with the aid of many stolen votes, a man and administration dedicated to the creation of division and hatred, both nationally and internationally. Now, I want to stop real quick and just point out that the Republican Party is right now the party pointing at the Democrats for election integrity, that they're the ones stealing the election. But according to the masters, the Republicans are the masters at that. They will ruefully watch an attack on their proudly held freedoms. They will see a steep decline in their standard of living as the government of necessity strives to tackle their enormous debts. They will witness a loss of confidence in their currency and a sharp reversal of trade with their traditional trading partners. The calamitous invasion of Iraq will continue to fester both in Iraq and elsewhere in the world. Reacting to the fear and hatred which this administration has engendered almost universally, the tendency will be for the people to look inwards and to turn their backs even more squarely on the world. A major problem in dealing with this administration is the powerful illusion under which it works, that is God-inspired, and so in divine grace, helping to restore the Christian world and message to its former power and glory. Thus has the United States taken a huge step backwards, isolating itself from the true concerns of much of the world, environmental pollution, and the demands of a planet suffering under the strain of impending disaster. The United States will find that the world will not stand still with or without with American cooperation. The nations will proceed as best they can to deal with the many ecological and social problems which beset us, and which so urgently must be addressed. America will find itself left behind and ignored, and only then will it be prepared to, quote-unquote, lead the way. This administration is, even now, relishing in its victory and weighing the pros and cons of subsequent action. Thwarted and taken unawares by events in Iraq, it must pause a while before considering further violence. But the bravado and rhetoric will doubtless continue, hoping to bully and conquer by threats alone. Meanwhile, great changes in many countries are underway, leading to a profound shift in the balance of power in the world. China and India, South America and Russia are finding their feet and economic potential. Africa is beginning to receive at last the concern and goodwill of powerful governments and agencies, and can look forward to better times. Thus the world is turning away from the dominance of American power and wealth and charting another path to fulfill its destiny. If the United States insists on its right of unilateral action, it will find itself neglected and ignored in international plans and projects. Its economy will further decay, and its people will lose confidence and trust in government action. Without friends and with ebbing strength, it will be forced to change and to renew dialogue with its former friends. The emergence of Maitreya will speed the process of this transformation and will assure its welcome completion. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.